Good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural session of a two-day national seminar on Andaman and Nicobar Islands Multidimensional Perspectives, organized by the UGC Center for Maritime Studies at Pondicherry University in collaboration with the Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, and Indian Council of Social Science Research at New Delhi. So on behalf of the Center for Maritime Studies here at Pondicherry University, the Indian Council of World Affairs, and on my own personal behalf, please allow me to extend a very warm welcome to the dignitaries and the special guests that we have here today. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome our most honorable and beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor K. Tarani Karasu of Pondicherry University, who will actually be chairing this session. We also have this morning with us former Ambassador to Myanmar, Mr. Rajiv Bhatia with us. We are honored to have you here, sir. We have also Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University at Chennai, Dr. Mrs. Malini V. Shankar with us this morning. We have the Vice Chancellor in charge of Nalanda University, Professor Abhay Kumar Singh. We are also welcoming the Dean, our own Dean of School of Social Sciences, Professor Chandrika. Last but not the least, I would welcome the Research Fellow at Indian Council of World Affairs, Dr. Sripati Narayanan, who is from the Indian Council of World Affairs, a collaborator at this conference. Along with these dignitaries, I am really glad to welcome the deans, the heads of the departments, the faculty members from the Center for Maritime Studies and other departments present here, the research scholars, as well as all the other students who are here in this August gathering with us today. As we proceed, I would now like to invite Professor S. Raju to welcome the guests here. As we all know, he is the man behind the show, a person with incredible academic caliber, who has recently stepped down after a successful tenure as Dean International Studies. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to everyone. On behalf of the UGC Center for Maritime Studies, Pondicherry University, Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, and Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi, I warmly invite you to the two-day national seminar on Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Multidimensional Perspectives. We place on record our gratitude to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, former Ambassador to Myanmar, Madam Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University, Dr. Malini Shankar, IAS, Professor Abhay Kumar Singh, Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, for being with us to deliver address in this inaugural session. We are also thankful to Professor Tarani Karasu, Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University, for accepting our invitation and being with us today to preside over the inaugural session. Thank you very much, sir. And also we thank Professor Chandrika, Dean of Social Sciences and International Relations, for being with us to deliver felicitation address. We acknowledge the presence of Dr. Raju Balaji, Pro Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, Air Marshal Dr. Matheswaran, AVSM, VM retired, Professor P.V. Rao, Professor S.K. Mohanty, Professor Gopalji Malviya, Professor J.L.N. Rao, Commodore Arnab, Dr. Anusuya Ray Chowdhury, Brigadier Amod Chadra, Captain Kasi Raman, Dr. Sripati Narayan, Professor Ranganath, Consul of Myanmar, and faculty members of various departments, scholars, students, and friends. We are very, very thankful to you all for being with us today. let me say very brief about the CMS, Center for Maritime Studies, which was established in 2014 under UGC Area Study Program. And it was continued with the support of UGC for 5 years. And fortunately or unfortunately, the support was stopped for all area studies programs in the different universities, about 45 area study programs. But then I say this, when we have grant from UGC, we were able to do, and then during 5 years, 2014 to 2019, but then later when we felt that whether we should close the center, but then the then Vice Chancellor, Professor Singh said, you continue and we will try to support. But fortunately what we did, we were able to do many academic activities. We were able to publish 10 books. We also able to publish 8 monographs, and we organized 10 seminars, and we are going to have one more seminar in in April with the collaboration of India Foundation on revisiting India Champa heritage in Southeast Asia. And I think without funding also we could do. That is what, in a way, I am very thankful to the UGC to stop the funding for the UGC Center for Maritime Studies, where we are able to do better than what we did it during the 5 years of the period where we got. So I think that is a challenge for us. Sometimes we feel that without funding also we will be able to do. So that's something I must place on record. And also we have a PhD program, and also why we conduct seminar on Andaman Nicobar Islands. This was conceived in 2020, which was supposed to be conducted at Port Blair, but then due to COVID pandemic, which made us to cancel everything 3 days before the event, and after 5 years with the intervention of our Vice Chancellor, we are able to have this after 5 years, this seminar here. And also I'm very thankful to the Vice Chancellor who pursued me to go ahead with this, and in continuation of the support of ICWA, and further we are able to get funding from ICCR. When we talk about this importance of this, I think we need to look at what is the importance of maritime. I think when we look at Andaman Nicobar Islands, we need to look at whether maritime is so important for us. When you look at on record, if you look at that 95% of the world trade goes through waters, 85% of the countries have coastline, and 45% of the population live near the coast. 3 billion people access to the ocean for their livelihood, and 80% of the capital cities and major international trade centers are near the coast. And 60% of the ships fly with flags different from their own nationality. When we talk about globalization, globalization stems from sea, from ocean. And when you talk about, on the other hand, only 5% of the world's ocean have been explored. In other words, 95% of the resources yet to be explored. Thereby, we talk about how to develop blue economy for the country like India, where we have, I think we are in the nascent stage to look at how to develop blue economy. We have experts who have been pioneering on the on blue economy. And also, ocean has been instrumental in connecting all parts of the world. One can say that ocean connects people, ocean connects civilizations, ocean connects religions, ocean connects states or governments. And also when you look at the concept of ocean, which tells us that irrespective of the location, every coastal state is a neighbor to another coastal state. That is what we look at from the maritime perspective, but on the continental perspective, you have a different perspective. So you look at that, how maritime has become. That's why I look at whether we can use globalization, or in the place of globalization, can we use the term maritimization? Because there are countries who are talking about deglobalization, but then we can talk about how this maritimization can be seen by either by the coastal state or by the landlocked country. And with reference to India, when we talk about, we have 2.1 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone. We have on record, it was their coastline 7,516.6 kilometers, but now the coastline of India has been officially updated by the Survey of India to 11,098.81 kilometers. That means more than 45% of the coastal line now increased. Thereby, we have every reason to talk about that we need to reorient our policy towards maritime. And we have more than 1,000 islands. And islands also play a very significant role when we talk about exclusive economic zone. And India is having a position of 16th in terms of position of EEZ. India is seen as a security provider, safety provider on the maritime front, but on the continental front, we have a different view about India's role. And India is seen as not seen as a dominant or hegemonic in the Indian Ocean. We have two Indias, maritime India and continental India. When you talk about these two Indias, 1 plus 1, mathematics says that 1 plus 1 equal to 2, but it can be different. 1 plus 1 can be equal to 11 or more than 11. That really we need to look at in our research how this maritime could really, help the continental India and how they strengthen each other. And also India's the profile in the world is enhanced through maritime. And we have, since independence, India has neglected the importance of the ocean for a long time. But in the recent past 10 years, you have seen that there are a lot of developments in the maritime domain, which we are also looking at how this maritime India could be seen in a different perspective. And also we hardly know, as a student of maritime, I can say that we hardly know about the India's true maritime history. Because when you look at how K.M. Panikkar was talking in 1946 about the importance of Malacca states, now you see the importance, how South China Sea is now under the control of China, which is very closer to the Malacca states. And also K.M. Panikkar recognizes the importance of Vietnam, that India needs to have good relation with Vietnam, and we are now seeing how Vietnam having good relation with us. Now look at that, and also very unfortunate to say that we don't have the publication of K.M. Panikkar in the market now, not available. So we need to look at how this, what is the maritime consciousness, that is something very important. Though we have long coast, India is being a peninsula, but still we need to work on that. Some of us may not accept that India, now we are blind towards ocean, but we can say that to some extent we are blind towards ocean. I think that's something very important, but then come to the point where we're talking about Andaman Nicobar Islands. 1/4 of the total coastline and 30% of India's EEZ contribute by Andaman Nicobar Islands. And 40% of India's trade goes through Andaman Nicobar Islands. And in the Andaman Nicobar Islands are strategically located in the Indian Ocean, which are gateway to Bay of Bengal, gateway to Indian Ocean, gateway to Southeast Asia and Indo-Pacific. And the islands are helping, mainland India and not vice versa. So whatever development happens in the islands is developing for the mainland. Despite India's lengthy coastline, we do not have natural deep ports, but then there is now going on the survey that natural deep ports can be also seen in Andaman Nicobar Islands. I think we also proposed a canal, but still it is in the nation state. But again, you look at how Andaman Nicobar Islands can be seen and also seen very, very close to Bay of Bengal or Southeast Asian countries. And this is something where we need to look at how one of the scholars talking about a rise of the region state. When you look at state within state and look at Andaman as a state, where the state can be connected to the rest of the world, how it can contribute to the global economy, how it connects to other countries. If you look at Andaman Nicobar Islands, is closer to Indonesia than Indian mainland. So that is something very important to look at how that could be seen strategically and also how it is going to be asset for the mainland India. And we also look at that when we are talking about blue economy, we need to look at the ocean wealth and the ocean health should go together. Ecology and economy should go together. I think that is what the government is looking at, how to develop Andaman Nicobar Islands. And when we are talking about the $5 trillion economy or $10 trillion economy, we need to look at the maritime is going to help us. And we also have Kashmir to Kanyakumari. We talk about still in our anthem Kanyakumari. Kashmir to Kanyakumari. I think we need to look at beyond Kanyakumari, we need to look at Andaman Nicobar Islands. Even beyond Andaman Nicobar Islands, we need to look at Indira Point. So our attitude towards till Indira Point, we have the connectivity, our geography. I think that's why we have to look at the reverse the map and understand how important this ocean, this maritime space we have. I think this is something where we need to look at as a student of maritime. I think that unless I reverse the map and look at, I don't understand how maritime space is so important for India. And geographically, blesses, but as being a peninsula, we are yet to have maritime consciousness. Of course, we have the present government is talking about Masam project or Sagarmala or Sagar or Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas. All these are all now looking at under this maritime consciousness. But still, we need to look at the research on maritime is very, very important. We have some of these delegates who are at the helm of affairs. I request them to kindly look at least in the academia, somewhere the curriculum to be introduced at the graduation level on maritime, that why we can look at the importance of maritime. I think also that is a very important aspect where we can look at, because we have a long coastline, but the study on maritime is not taken seriously by most of the universities. And also we need to look at some of the task force on various areas of maritime that really help us to put in the, bring India into the global map. Look at that, because we know about during or before Mughal came to India, our contribution in shipbuilding was remarkable. But then if you look at now what is the situation, because if you look at South Korea, China and Japan are contributing, but then our contribution is around 1% or 2%. So I think this is something where we need to look at shipbuilding. I think always I look at that history, it should also should decide the future. And we need to look at the history, how this history makes us to think about how we are strong enough in shipbuilding. And that is something where we need to look at how that could be really. And unless we look at maritime, it is very difficult for us to look for India's development or India as a rising power. In this contest, in the next 2 days, we are having different sections on different issues like security, environment sustainability, blue economy, and energy security, economic opportunities, strategic assets, maritime domain awareness, connectivity, role of ANC. So I think I thank you all once again for being with us to grace the occasion, and hopefully we will have a meaningful discourse on the Andaman Nicobar Islands. Thank you once again. I invite you.
Thank you so much, Professor Raju, for beautifully outlining the scope of this conference, for emphasizing on the importance of maritime studies and convincing us, and perhaps you will be able to convince UGC also to provide some funding. And particularly at this moment, when we are faced with major climatic crisis, I think it is important for all of us to look beyond, as he said, to look beyond India, to look at the ocean world. And he rightly said that oceans connect us. In fact, as a scholar on Mauritian studies, I've recently written an article in which I argue that it is the cyclones that connect us. So particularly because of the climatic conditions, because of the dominant narrative on sustainability, I believe it is crucial for us to look at maritime studies. And another interesting aspect that he sort of emphasized on is inclusivity, that we need to, our connection to the maritime world is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and we need to include it within the Indian mainland. And Pondicherry University is, again, it's a very interesting fact that we are holding this conference here because we do have a satellite campus. We've already looked at that. We've already included it, in a way.
respected Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, former Ambassador to Myanmar and of Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, Dr. Mrs. Malini V. Shankar, IAS, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, Chennai, Sri Shishir Priyadarshi, President, Chintan Research Foundation, New Delhi, and Professor Abhay Kumar Singh, Vice Chancellor in charge, Nalanda University, and Dr. Sripati Narayan, Research Fellow, Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, and all the dignitaries of the dais, and our beloved Dean, Professor G. Chandrika, and Professor A. Subramaniam Raju, Coordinator, UGC Center for Maritime Studies, Pondicherry University, and my dear students, scholars, and I could see some of the faculty members from other departments also. And we have Dean, Professor Nadarajan, and Professor Aruna is also here. So good morning, everyone. So it is indeed a great pleasure to be part of this national seminar on Andaman Nicobar Island, Multidimensional Perspectives. So it is being organized by UGC Center for Maritime Studies, Pondicherry University, in collaboration with Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, and in Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. So this is very important. I think Professor Raji has mentioned many data which is relevant to the maritime studies, the blue economy, as well as Andaman Nicobar Islands. So being the part of Pondicherry University, we have as it is already mentioned, Andaman Nicobar Islands also we have a center, Pondicherry Center, and we have started this after the tsunami. We thought that there should be a center there which can contribute much to the scientific world. So we started the in the Department of Ocean Studies and Marine Biology in 2007. We started the MSc in Coastal Disaster Management course, but later on we converted into Department of Coastal Disaster Management. Now it is a full-time course. From 2010 onwards, we made it as a separate course, separate department. And there, all the coastal disaster related studies and natural disaster and volcano studies, all those earthquake, all those studies the scientists are doing. And NIDM is the continuously organizing many seminar in this, and recently NIOT also sponsored MSc Marine Science students in roughly 4 crore they invested on this. This is the kind of support Indian government wants to do this. Any project, as a Vice Chancellor in charge, any project which we would like to do anything in here in Andaman Nicobar, they are very generous. And they want to do more in the Andaman Nicobar Islands. So when it comes to the activities of island compared to other islands, so as Professor Raju mentioned, we are very slow and very less. And I went to I was doing postdoc studies in Korea as well as Japan, where it is similar to this place, very coastal. There are a lot of activities in the coastal area. Where I was in Busan, and I was in Seoul also, and here also I was in Kanazawa. Lot of activities near the coast. Whereas if you go to our coast, it's almost like a banned area. No activity, only fisherman rarely visits and comes back. But also no modern technology used. I don't know the policy makers here, you can go around and you can decide on this. Where I could see in in Busan and as well as in Japan, I could see the live fish market where they catch fish live and then they display in the fish market also live. It's a big fish market, and there you don't need to worry about how long this fish will survive. So then now here they catch fish, bring the dead fish. There is a pressure on the fisherman to sell without upgrading this fish. It is they are being sold, and they enter into the shortcut of adding formaldehyde into this to improve the preservatives. These are all could be managed easily today's technical world, but I don't know why these techniques are not very simple technique. We have to have when they catch fish, they have to have enough vessel where the live fish can be stored. They brought here, they can also sell here live. But this is not so. There are so many reasons. I don't want to. Internal politics also may be there. Only fishermen should be allowed, all others should not be allowed. Like this, there are many politics. But ultimately, our economy, blue economy, is not the one what we should have. Lot of activities. If you see in Busan or Seoul, many people are around this. Many activities around the sea can be also done. So this is, I thought, one experience I had. I thought I will share. Another experience I had when I was after I became the vice chancellor. There was one Indonesian team. They visited Indonesian university. They visited. They were very enthusiastic to meet the vice chancellor of Pondicherry University. I was wondering why the Indonesian university is very interested to meet Pondicherry University vice chancellor. The simple reason is we have a university center there. No other university has any center there in the Pondicherry, in the Andaman Nicobar island. Being the separate union territory, we only have the center there, and all the colleges are affiliated to us. We have one recently started the one medical college also, ANIMS, and it also comes under us. But the thing is, we only, when it comes to education, we only have this. And when it comes to the research also, our research center is only the leading research center, and which takes care of any research facilities there. And of course, there are NIOTs there, and they are not offering any degree course. They are only doing research on this. But because of this, he wants to have a MOU with us. And another important thing is, you must be knowing this, there is a island called Rondo Island in Indonesia. This is called Guardian of Indonesia. This Rondo Island is the tip of that Indonesia, and this is the closest Indonesian island to India, and which is situated in the northern tip of the Sumatra island. So this is, if you may, for the student, I want to give the information. It is only 593 kilometers from India, very near to the Indra Point. So the people there, their culture is totally different from the Indonesia's culture. Many Buddhists are there. Many of them are Buddhist, and they consider their culture is very similar to the Indian culture, not the Indonesian culture. They follow the Indian culture. They want to know about Indian culture. They want to study more about Indian culture. So this is the information I got it from the Indonesian delegation visit. And also another important thing is, if we want to do any building or any business in Andaman Nicobar, buying a material from Indonesia is cheaper than what we buy from India. This is the policymaker should think about this. So our own country material is costlier than the foreign material. So they buy more construction material from Indonesia compared to India, because here too we have to take through ship, and it takes cost is very high there. And in fact we started the building for the students, the student hostel. So initially it was 9 crore. Then when it comes to the L1, it goes up to 19 crore, 21 crore, like this. The simple reason is the price of the material is very high. Every day it is increasing. So because of this, we could not even complete that project to construct the hostels there. So these are if you have a very good policy, where I know the defense wise it is very strategic point, but in the name of this defense, we should not stop increasing the blue economy there and the activities there. So these are some of the point I thought I will share my experience with the students. So with this, how the Andaman Nicobar is not, we are not utilizing Andaman Nicobar, the point whatever we have through in the case of blue economy, as well as the strategic points. So I could see there are many stalwarts in this field who are gathering here to discuss about different points like energy security, and then strategic landscape of Andaman and Nicobar, and even blue economy, ports development, and dilemmas like this. There are many points they are going to discuss. It will be definitely very useful for the students. Our own island, and why we are not using, how we can improve this. So this is very valid point, and we know already the Maldives, the island, compared to our Lakshadweep, both are similar. And in fact, we have a college in Lakshadweep, very difficult to reach. Whereas the Maldives, so they attract more tourists. Their economy is very good compared to our economy at Lakshadweep. That is the reason our Honorable Prime Minister also visited. But still, we are long way to go when compared to other countries, and utilizing the opportunity. So with these few words, I thank Professor Subramaniam Raju and his team for organizing this 2-day national seminar on Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And also I take opportunity to thank all the dignitaries who are come outside our university. Take your time and then give your valuable points to our students. That will be very useful for the students to study and publish also. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your chair address, and also for giving us more details on the Pondicherry satellite campus in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which actually has been quite active. You will be very happy to know that last year we had an exchange between Mahatma Gandhi Institute in Mauritius and the disaster management in Andaman and Nicobar, and we were able to send a C.V. Raman fellow from Mauritius to that institute, and also for emphasizing how Andaman Nicobar is very strategically placed for us to be able to make further connections to Indonesia and other parts of the ocean world. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to invite for the inaugural address former ambassador to Myanmar, Mr. Rajiv Bhatia, who is a distinguished fellow of Foreign Studies program at Gateway House. He is a member currently at CII's International Advisory Council, Trade Policy Council, and Africa Committee. He is the chair of FICCI's Task Force on Blue Economy, and has served as chair of core group of experts on BIMSTEC. He is a founding member of the Kalinga International Foundation and a member of the Governing Council of Asian Confluence. He also is the General Director of the Indian Council of World Affairs, that is collaborating with us for this conference. In addition to that, he has 3 books to his credit. The first one is India in Global Affairs, Perspectives from Sapru House. Second is India-Myanmar Relations, Changing Contours, published with Routledge. And the last one is India-Africa Relations, Changing Horizons, again with Routledge, published as recently as 2022. We are honored to have you amongst us, sir.
Esteemed Vice Chancellor, eminent fellow panelists, and dear students. It's a real pleasure and privilege for me to be back at this campus and once again addressing all of you on an important subject. It's quite daunting to note that 3 vice chancellors are sitting here on the stage. More than a dozen PhDs are present here in the hall, and the hall is full of young people with dreams in their eyes. I think in this whole setting, to my mind, the most important actor is the body of students, because our attempt is to whet your appetite and to create a situation where in a few years some of you will become national level scholars on the Indian Ocean and maritime studies. I think this is what Professor Raju is trying to do by these tireless efforts year after year. And this cannot be done better anywhere else than here in Puducherry and at Pondicherry University, because quite honestly, living and working in Delhi, it's very difficult for one to convince people about the oceanic dimensions of India. It's only those of us who work and live in places like Kolkata, Chennai, places in Gujarat, Kerala. They don't have to be given this map in reverse order to know that oceans are part of your life. So for the next 2 days, we are going to do that, and we are hoping that our message will reach home. Now, I would not venture to give you too many facts and figures on Andaman and Nicobar Islands, ANI for the short, or some may say ANI. The facts and figures are fairly well known, although they are changing, as Professor Raju pointed out. It's wonderful to know that the length of our coastline has undergone a change. I hope the numbers of islands of ANI would also change. They are supposed to be 572 islands, of which 38 are inhabited. It may have changed by now. The population is much less than 500,000 people. And as you know, it's quite near from here, 1,190 kilometers from Chennai and 1,250 kilometers from Mumbai, or from Kolkata, sorry, not Mumbai, Kolkata. And we all know that it is not a state, it is a union territory, so it is governed directly from India. We all also know that these islands are located in the Indian Ocean, and three countries in particular are the maritime neighbors: Thailand, Myanmar, and Indonesia. You have Bay of Bengal in the west and the Arabian and the Andaman Sea on the east. It's important to keep looking at the map to understand this location of ANI. And if you look at it for some time, then you begin to understand the importance. But besides history, besides geography, I think history is also important. Even if I don't take you through the ancient and medieval period, at least colonial history needs to be remembered. It was quite striking for me to discover that at least 4 European nations tried to vie for the control of ANI. First came Denmark in the 18th century, in 1755, to be very precise, and they set up a colony in Nicobar. Denmark, which is not at all a colonial country, was interested in ANI in those days. And then another country which has never shown any interest in colonialism, Austria, came to try to buy some parts of ANI, thinking that Danes are no longer interested in this. Italy tried to do something similar, but eventually these 3 European nations were displaced by the British, the cleverest of them all, and they managed to set up their whole administration there, which lasted for a long period. The only time the British found a very tough competitor, and that was Japan during the Second World War. And they came and defeated, and they took control. And in order to sell the idea to India, they gave some role to INA, to the Indian National Army. But what happened thereafter is very interesting. Eventually, Japanese were defeated, as you know, and the British retook the control. And as they were discussing the question of giving independence to India, they worked on this very wicked scheme, as they did in Mauritius. The scheme was that we will give independence to India, but we'll keep ANI with us. And as if that was not enough, those who were plugging for Pakistan, the creation of a new state, and they were getting East Bengal as East Pakistan, they also tried to say that ANI should be part of Pakistan. Luckily for India, and the firm decisions that our leadership took, ANI stayed as part of independent India. And so I think this is a very brief glimpse of history. I'm not claiming that it is totally authentic. I'm simply requesting you to go and have a close look at the historical backdrop to understand that ANI is one of the most valuable strategic assets of India, and it is also one of the least studied subjects for those of us who study maritime studies. This needs to change. And this needs to change in consultation with all the stakeholders in ANI. I applaud Professor Raju's and Brigadier Amok Chadda's efforts to ensure that deliberations on ANI must take place in ANI itself. But we hope that their efforts would succeed next time. I'm quite certain that if we approach the PPNR division, an Indo-Pacific division of the Ministry of External Affairs, they may see the utility of studying ANI in an inclusive manner by involving the experts, the officials, the service personnel, the business people anchored and living there, because only then they would also feel that the students and national level scholars, maritime scholars of India are truly interested in them. Now, dear friends, my basic thesis today is that ANI has to be seen from twin perspectives of economic development and security and geopolitics. On the economic side, I think clearly, since we are talking about a cluster of islands spread across over a long period, or over a large period, a large region, we can say that the concepts of blue economy kick into this very clearly. Blue economy, in a simple language, is about the sustainable development of oceanic resources. By all means, develop the resources that oceans have to offer, but do it in such a fashion that you do not hurt the ocean, you do not damage and destroy the oceans. That is the central point. And so, looking from the ANI's perspective, we can say fisheries, port development, tourism, and one or two other specific sectors. I see Arnab here, who will undoubtedly talk about maritime domain awareness and all that means in due course. It's very important that we get to know our own country's region, its resources, and therefore, while I must confess frankly, I do not know enough as to how much work has been done in ANI about blue economy. But if ANI does not have its own blue economy policy, it certainly needs to have one. Of course, Professor Mohanty is sitting here and he would be the first to agree that even before ANI has its own policy, time has come for India to have its own blue economy policy. Some of the people sitting in this room worked very hard, tirelessly, to encourage the adoption of a national blue economy policy. We came very close to it with much help from Niti Aayog, which developed a wonderful blue economy policy framework. But then elections came and somehow the momentum was lost. I think we need to recapture that momentum, because if you really want to see tangible growth and progress in full optimal utilization of blue economy resources, we must have a policy, we must have a mechanism, we must have a fund, and we must be more conscious at the policy level of developing blue economy. The second dimension, security and geopolitics, I'm sure will be looked at very carefully. Here, as the only diplomat or former diplomat present in the room, I would like to highlight that ANI has a special place in India's Act East policy. Act East policy, as all of you know, lays a stress on India developing closer and more cooperative relations with the entire region east of India, stretching from Myanmar all the way to South Pacific. And it is government's attempt that in Act East policy, two of India's regions, namely Northeast and ANI, receive due salience. In fact, I can say that the entire eastern border of India, is starting from Arunachal Pradesh right down to Kanyakumari or the region adjacent to it, has its relevance to Act East. But I think these two, Northeast and ANI, have a special value. Over the years, I think Northeast has got its salience recognized but ANI needs to do more. And this perspective came into sharp focus when President Prabowo Subianto of Indonesia was here just very recently on a state visit to New Delhi. I think some of you who follow these things must follow closely the outcomes of the Indonesian president's visit. Vice Chancellor spoke about how close neighbors India and Indonesia are, particularly when you take ANI into consideration. And in that visit, the two leaders particularly agreed on forging very close maritime collaborations and also cooperation in the field of infrastructure to develop the ports, the road and railways, and similar activities. So, in a way, the two countries tried earlier. We all know about the Aceh Andaman connectivity project, the development also of Sabang as civilian port, but somehow the progress stalled and that needs to be remedied and rectified. So the short point I am making is that Act East policy should not be looked at in isolation from ANI. And then there are other policies and strategies as well, whether it is Sagar, whether it is our Maritime Vision 2030, and whether it involves the operation of several important plurilateral groupings such as IORA, BIMSTEC, and also Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. Each of these subjects, they are subjects of long discussion and lecture, and I have no doubt that in the technical sessions today, our scholars will be talking in detail about them as well as other matters. So all that I am saying is addressing once again to the students of the university that these acronyms, these policies, these visions, they are not just slogans. Against each of them, there is a detailed philosophy. There is a lot of work that has gone. There many, many books have been written. Innumerable conferences have taken place. The challenge for you is to imbibe this knowledge and then take it further, contribute it further, so that then the next generation of scholars that this country produces stands on the shoulders of those who are carrying the responsibility today. I would also, in the end, like to say that if Pondicherry University could conceive of a scheme, no matter how small and modest, of sending some of its students to the satellite campus, even for short-term deputation. I think a visit for even a week to the area will be equivalent, if not more valuable, to reading many, many books and interacting with the scholars alone. So, in a way, if you really want, Vice Chancellor Sahib, for this university to develop a specialization, I think we need to invest in our youth. So maybe if there are 2, 3, or 4, or 5 students who have done well, who have secured good marks, who have presented nice dissertations, as an award or a reward, as an incentive, we need to think. These are things which are not all that expensive once you sit down and work the budget out. But even if some of us have not been able to go there, if the choice is between a senior scholar and a young scholar to go there, I would invest in my audience which is sitting from the third row further backwards. In the end, let me express my very warm gratitude to the university. Whenever they do these major things, they are very kind to remember us and call us. And this is one university to which I just cannot say no. You have good fame in the country academically. You have an international connection through history with France and Europe. You have Aurobindo Ashram. And so, every time when I say to somebody I'm going to Puducherry, first of all, sometimes they get confused. They say, are you going to Puducherry? I said, yes, Pondicherry. Then they understand better. And then they know that you're going to a place of intellectual, cultural, and spiritual importance. And in a way, therefore, it's truly a pilgrimage for me. Allow me in the end, as a token of my deep appreciation, a small book I brought which I would like to present to Professor Raju as a token of my very warm thanks to him.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words, for encouraging the university, and also for emphasizing on the need for us to go back as far as, our colonial history goes in order to understand the importance of islands. We just need to look back at what the colonial empire was doing and how they were always interested in holding on to these islands to understand how important they could be for us and, for questions of economy, climate change, etc. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for encouraging the students. Thank you for proposing, which I believe is a very good proposal of sending some of the students to the islands, because it is always our position that has an experiential impact on our understanding of things. As you yourself mentioned, that it is difficult for the diplomats and the politicians sitting in Delhi to think about the coasts. And it comes to us naturally because we are here, because of our positioning here. Thank you so much, sir, for all of this. Going ahead with the program, I now invite for keynote address Dr. Mrs. Malini Shankar, who's Vice Chancellor currently at the Indian Maritime University. She's an IAS officer. She is an honorary member of the Board of Directors of the World Maritime University, having been nominated by the Director General IMO. She is also a member of the government-appointed member of the board of the directors of companies. She has held several key positions in her 4-decade-long career. She was collector at Nagpur District, Joint Commissioner, Industries Commissioner with the Government of Maharashtra, Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, etc. And in addition to that, she has been very active academically also. She is the recipient of several merit scholarships and professional recognitions. She is the first Indian woman to receive the Global AAA Award by the Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines. We are honored to have you here and look forward to hearing.
Good morning and thank you for the kind introduction. Your Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Pondicherry University, Professor Tarani Karasu, Ambassador Bhatia, guests of honor, Professor Abhay Kumar, Professor Chandrika, Professor Raju, Professor Dr. Shripati Narayan, esteemed experts, distinguished delegates, scholars, researchers, and dear students. So, Ambassador Bhatia, thank you for that fascinating history of the Europeans scrambling to have a piece of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I'm delighted to be here amidst you today. I would like to extend my gratitude to Pondicherry University especially the UGC Center for Maritime Studies, for organizing this timely seminar to discover the strategic significance of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and to strengthen its advantages in the interest of maritime security for India and its region. Way back in high school, they used to have quiz programs. And one of the questions that was put in the quiz program is, which is the southernmost tip of India? And of course, the obvious answer from almost everybody was Kanyakumari or thereabouts. And then you discovered the answer is Pygmalion Point. Pygmalion Point became Indira Point much later, but the original name for that southernmost tip of Andamans was Pygmalion Point. And that was my introduction to Andaman and Nicobar way back in high school. I have traveled to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands several times, sometimes on vacation and sometimes on work. The first visit was in 1986, and that was just to Port Blair and its surrounding areas. And the last visit was an official visit in 2018 to the southern tip of Nicobar Islands. I have seen, dear friends, Port Blair metamorphosed from a pristine jungle. Just Port Blair, you go 2 kilometers outside, it was just pristine jungles with tree trunks which would have expanded, with a diameter of maybe 10 feet. Lemons, onions, everything had to be imported from the mainland. Cooking gas was non-existent. There's just a lot of drumstick trees and a lot of fish that was available. And it metamorphosed by the time I went last visit in 2018 to a city with multi-storied buildings and traffic jams, believe it or not, traffic jams. In 1986, there were only, 2 flights a week. You could fly out only from the then Madras, the then Calcutta, or Visakhapatnam. Visakhapatnam had a flight. And I happened to miss one flight and I had to stay back for 3 days. It's a lovely place to stay back if you're not in a hurry to come back. 1980s was not a hurried life like today. And now you have more than 20 flights a day from several cities in India. So the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, we know, is an amalgamation of, like Ambassador Bhatia said, 572. And sir, if you search in the internet, it actually says it's 800 plus islands. So we hope we know whether it's 572 or 800 soon. And it is strategically advantageous for the country from several aspects. In the ancient text of Ramayana, and I take back the history back to the age of Ramayana, these islands were referred to as Handuman, highlighting its connection to India's mythological and cultural heritage. Now, the great traveler Ptolemy, the Greek traveler, referred to this island as Agadamon Angadaman. Later, Rajendra Chola first of the Chola dynasty was among the first to exploit the island's geostrategic advantage. The Cholas had a formidable navy, and they used these islands as a springboard to their expansion into Southeast Asia, and this was very prominent in the 11th century between 1014 and 1042 AD. In the modern era, the 18th century marked a pivotal turning point with the arrival of Lieutenant Archibald Blair, who established a naval base on these islands. This initiative signified the beginning of organized governance in the region, laying the ground for its strategic and administrative importance. The islands serve as a crucial outpost for maritime security, for defense, and for trade. Besides this, it's a rich source for maritime wealth and a rich resource for tourism revenue. I will touch upon each of these aspects very briefly in the next few minutes. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands provide a critical link between the Western Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean region. Located at the western edge of the Malacca Strait, the islands is among one of the world's busiest sea lanes of communication, with over 60,000 merchant ships crossing it annually. The significance of the Malacca Strait lies in the fact that it provides the shortest maritime route between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. Hence, the proximity of the Andaman and Islands gains global significance in providing maritime security, anti-piracy operations, and search and rescue missions. The Malacca Straits is notorious for its piracy, and that becomes a key factor in merchant navy. The Indian Ocean is once again emerging as an arena of strategic power. The islands have maritime boundaries, as mentioned by the speakers, with neighboring nations, Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. More importantly, they add 300,000 square kilometers to India's exclusive economic zone, which India has the right to exploit. In 2022, a budget of 75,000 crore rupees was approved for infrastructure projects in Andaman and Nicobar. The Government of India plans to establish a greenfield international airport, an international container terminal, transshipment terminal, development of large townships, as well as a power plant on an area spread across 16,000 hectares in Great Nicobar. As Professor Raju mentioned, Sardar K.M. Panikkar, a visionary historian and diplomat, underscored the significance of these islands as early as 1945. But it is only in the past decade that India has accentuated its engagement with its Indo-Pacific littoral in multiple ways. The northernmost island of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is a mere 22 nautical miles, just 22 nautical miles from Myanmar, and the southernmost point, or the Indra Point, is a mere 90 nautical miles from Indonesia. Compare it with its distance from India, 800 nautical miles from Chennai, highlighting the significant distance and hence the perhaps ignorance of those islands from the mainland Indian perspective. From the point of view of defense, the islands provide a forward base for the Indian Armed Forces, enabling rapid deployment and projection of power in the Indian Ocean. India's recent surge in military and infrastructural developments in this area sends an unequivocal message asserting India's influence over the vital sea lanes that connect the world's largest economies. The Government of India, as we know, has established the Integrated Tri-Service Command, or the ANC, in Nicobar. When we come to trade, the island occupies a strategic location in the world's commercial waterways, from where 90% of the world trade by value and 70% by volume passes through this narrow channel. Every year, 85 to 90% of the world's crude mineral oil is traded through this route. 78% of China's oil supply and 70% of China's trade with Europe, Gulf, and Africa passes through this route, making this region very, very critical in the perspective of geopolitical strategy. The major Indian maritime development policy initiatives besides the Blue Economy policy includes the Sagarmala program and Maritime India Vision 2030. They are at different stages of execution, drawing these islands into mainstream maritime arena. The government has ambitious plans to establish a huge transshipment terminal in the Great Nicobar Islands, as I mentioned. Now, this Great Nicobar Islands is equidistant from established transshipment hubs. It's 1,300 kilometers from the transshipment hubs and bunkering ports of Singapore, Port Klang in Malaysia, and Hambantota in Sri Lanka. And much as the proximity to these well-established hubs raises questions about the economic feasibility of a new terminal, the development is critical for the nation's security. Now, coming to maritime wealth, the International Seabed Authority has allocated 75,000 square kilometers in the central Indian Ocean to India for conducting exploratory mining. This area is almost 750 times the size of the London city. Then there is the country's deep ocean mission, which has been launched at an estimated cost of $483 million or 40 billion rupees, with the development of deep sea mining technologies as a key component. In the scientific quest for underwater mineral exploration, the NIOT has conducted a successful exploratory mining trial last year in the Andaman Sea between India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Myanmar, with a view to obtaining polymetallic nodules from the seabed. With the use of geospatial technologies and GIS, policymakers can monitor and manage marine and terrestrial sources effectively. These technologies allow for precise mapping of the region's ecological zones, enabling informed decisions regarding resource conservation and management. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands are connected with Chennai through undersea cables, and India and Singapore were in talks for laying undersea cables with a view to connecting the power grids and enabling India to trade renewable power with Singapore. While raising the level of trade and communication, these cables raise two issues: protection of the cable in a region fraught with maritime security concerns, and protection of the natural environment and aquatic life. These developments undoubtedly call for interdisciplinary research and cooperation, and perhaps Pondicherry University is well placed to take this forward. With regards to tourism, the island's pristine beaches, coral reefs, and lush rainforests attract tourists seeking adventure and natural beauty. These islands, if you haven't visited them, are a tropical paradise with a diverse flora and fauna, including endemic species that are found nowhere else on the earth. It is crucial to balance the tourism development with environmental conservation and the well-being of local communities for long-term sustainability of the islands. These islands are home to several indigenous tribes: Great Andamanese, Onge, Jarawas, Sentinelese, and Shompens, each with their own culture, tradition, and languages. These communities have a deep connection with the land and sea, preserving ancient knowledge and practices, and their cultural heritage needs to be preserved. Fishing in the Andamans is not just a means of livelihood, it's important for its trade and tourism. Group of fish used to be exported from Port Blair to Thailand through a circuitous route. There were entrepreneurs who brought amateur anglers from Europe to Andamans for fishing, earning the islands and thereby the country valuable foreign exchange. These eco-sensitive occupations have been given way to mammoth trawlers and dynamite fishing, depleting the catch and endangering the folks whose subsistence depends on fishing. These needs to be studied, the locals need to be, the people involved in these occupations need to be sensitized through proper studies and research. I recall that when I went there in 1986, tourism was highly unorganized. The itineraries were uncertain. They would say, you come here, we'll go scuba diving or we'll go snorkeling at a certain time, and you go there and you're there for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then they say nobody is available. Schedules were dependent on local informal guides. But during my last visit, I found a huge rush for the tourist spots with the boats sputtering kerosene mixed diesel. There is a definite possibility of introducing eco-friendly water transport using solar energy, especially for short trips to sites, such as the mud volcano, which is, to go to the mud volcano, you have to take a long ride on big ships, a 2-hour ride. But when you get off those big ships, they take you in these small little boats, which go only, it's about 2 to 5 minutes, but they're small boats with 6-seater boats, and they're sputtering diesel mixed with kerosene. So those need to be replaced with boats that can run on solar energy or other renewable energy. And that's something which even the Indian Maritime University, we are trying to get into this arena and see what can be done to facilitate this transition. Feasibility studies need to be carried out to design financial support for ecologically sustainable tourism programs. One of the fond memories I have in one of the visits that I went to Andaman, and this was about 2 hours away from Port Blair, I was to go snorkeling, and as I said, the itinerary is quite uncertain. Somebody came by from an NGO and said, do you want a mud walk among the mangroves? I said, sure, I have time. Said, you just need to have good shoes. And when we walked, it was incredible flora and fauna that is, that you can see if they show it to you, under each stone, under each plant, which you would not see if you just took a walk. So these need to be preserved. And we need to bear in mind the likely environmental impacts of each of the activities that I mentioned: deep sea mining, which include the potential mortality of zooplankton species in mid-ocean, the unique biodiversity which needs to be protected. I'm sure that there are sufficient studies that are being conducted or have been conducted by environmental scientists, but there is vast scope for intensifying these studies. Conserving the biodiversity is essential as much for tourism and for livelihood as it is for understanding and mitigating the consequences of climate change and undersea exploration. This seminar offers a unique platform to explore the resources, both living and non-living, and to assess the strategic role as a gateway to the Indo-Pacific, ASEAN, and BIMSTEC regions. By leveraging technological innovations, we can enhance maritime safety, boost resource management, and ensure the protection of the island's delicate systems. I'm confident, dear friends, that the insights and recommendations generated today will guide policymakers, scholars, and industry leaders in crafting solutions that ensure the long-term sustainability, security, and prosperity of the islands. I extend my best wishes to all of you for a fruitful and productive 2 days. May our deliberations inspire new ideas and foster deeper cooperation as we strive to build a sustainable and secure future for the Andamans and Nicobar Islands and its people. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malini Shankar, for a very interesting speech where you brought out very interesting points. While here we are focused a lot on questions of security and sustainability, you brought out a very interesting point on the tribal population which resides in the islands and which has been a primary question of concern. Also because on one side we have the tribals who are in their own world, and on the other side we are talking about sustainable tourism. So we do need policies in place where we are able to find a kind of balance between the two, always keeping in mind our preoccupations with inclusivity, and it is also a heritage of the country that needs to be preserved. And also for taking us back for the etymological precision that you gave on the Andaman Nicobar Islands, connecting it back to the ancient Indian history and mythology. Thanks a lot for that. We move on for the next address, which is the guest of honor address. I am very pleased to call upon Professor Abhay Kumar Singh, who is currently the Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University. We are very pleased to have you here, sir. He has received his education in MJP, Rohilkhand University, Bareilly, and obtained PhD in Ancient History and Culture. So I'm sure he will be, giving us insights on the historical, sociological, and cultural aspects of it. Presently as interim Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, where he has been serving as Dean, School of Historical Studies, and Dean, International Relations. In 2018 and 21, he completed a diplomatic assignment in Embassy of India in Iran as founding director of the Indian Cultural Center and established the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Tehran. He has established the Indo-Iranian Studies Center, developed an archaeological museum, Panchala Museum, through a Center of Excellence Award, and he also served as Professor of Ancient History at NEHU, Northeastern Hill University in Shillong. He was awarded the World Prize for the Book of the Year of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is his area of interest, in 2006 by the President of Iran for his contributions, and later a facilitation with a citation plaque by the Vice President of Iran. That was in May 2008. And as you might have noticed, his research pertains to ancient Indian contacts with the Persians, the Greco-Bactrians, the Sakas, Kushanas, and the subsequent social, religious, economic, cultural, as well as artistic effects in history. We are glad to have you here with us and look forward to hearing you.
Namaskar. So first of all, it's an honor to be here at Pondicherry University, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Tarni Karasu. Is it all right? Okay. Honorable Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Malini Shankarji, Dean Professor Chandrika ji, and my very respected friend Professor Raju and Mr. Shripati ji from there. I have distinguished gathering in front of me, scholars of the field, senior who are always respected everywhere because of their contributions and knowledge, and the most brilliant students here who have been very patiently listening to all the aspects. Since this is a multi-dimensional perspectives, I have to put my views from another angle, which I think you may appreciate if you take the journey not from the national to emotional, but from the emotional to the national perspective. When I look at the ANI, I had two very important points made earlier. One, when Dr. Raju gave the inverted map, that sea and the land together, where sea is massive, land is smaller. And then Madam just now, as she pointed out, that in the different quiz, you would always find Kanyakumari as the last point of India, whereas it was the Indira point. This separates us in our vision, in our mindset, that we are not considering the ANI as a part of us. Of course, when it comes to our national boundaries, we are sure that it is with us, ANI belongs to us. But we have forgotten that this is the place where we first had the tricolor hoisted by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose way back when he took the Azad Hind Fauj and landed up in the Nicobar, in Andaman and Nicobar, and the flag was hoisted. That was 1945. The national is a gateway to our freedom. It's a national creation of the nation. That chapter has this important contribution noted there. But how much emotionally we are attached to the ANI, particularly when we are on the mainland. I looked into the spirit, why this has been getting a backseat in our mind, and I found that two important stigmas that make us unhappy about Andamans and Nicobars is, one, that we feel that it is the Kala Pani. It is the place for exile, it's a place for putting the people into a cut-off world. So we started admitting that this is something cut off from us. It is something for convicts. It is something which was not the part of the major life. And the other is that we were told and we learned that it is a tribal place where the tribes have not mixed up with anybody for thousands of years. Now, should we not be proud about it? That we had people who for thousands of years, and if I am correct in my reading, it's more than 70,000 years they say that they have not been in touch with anybody, and they lived their own way, survived, and continued with their customs till the advent of the British. Or as today I learned that it was the Danes who were there first. this continuity we can boast of, that we had people who lived in this place and they belong to our country. So we are one of the first to hold such people. And when we look into from the anthropological studies into the tribes, whether it's the Great Andamanese or the other tribe that is in that regions, they had perfected the systems. They were not, if we call them primitive, I would not be agreeing to the idea, because they had perfected the systems. And even when we look into the census, we find that the fall or the loss of their population has been mainly due to the atrocities. Mostly when the census reports say that they were killed, most of the males were killed. And also the social systems that they held were quite like what we have in our place. So with this mind, again I found that what should have been one of the points where you should be proud of, we become a little, what you say, feeling ourselves obsolete and not up to the mark. So the two things, as I said, Kalapani is a stigma, and the other is that we were primitive. I would just remind you here that if you look into three important serial done by the Rajya Sabha TV, the gentleman, there's a young man there who is speaking to the TV man. He says, earlier we were jungli, now we are admi. And he repeatedly says so. Earlier we were jungli, now we are admi. Look, jungli and admi means a civilized human being today, and we were junglis. That means we were. Now this is the ideas that have been nailed down in our minds. So please now think from this angle what I am going to say further. I tried to see two parallels. One was the Hawaii, the islands of Hawaii, which are connected to the US, the mainland. They had separated, but they are a part. This is the 50th state of the US. And the island of Rhodes, connected to Greece. It's a part of Greek. Now, if you go into the history, you can read about it. I'm not going to take time here. The Hawaii was, of course, it had its own people earlier. Then finally there comes a kingdom, and then finally the US takes over, annexes. So it is annexed to the US, and then they start development over there, make it a resort. Rhodes taken by the Greeks, but Rhodes belonged to the Greeks because it is, since going to the antiquity, it was always with the Greeks. It had its relationship with the Greeks. So after the liberation, and when the Greeks were free, they took over that and joined it to, and they have maintained the relationship with that in the same sense as with any other place in Greece. Rhodes is an integral part of this. Similarly, with the Andaman and Nicobar, we have the relationship which goes to great antiquity. Madam referred to it, and now I may just add a few points to that. That the first references of the Andaman is, of course, from the Valmiki Ramayana. And here it is said that the followers of Sugriv were the inhabitants over there. So the followers of Sugriv were inhabiting, and from the word Hanuman, they got the name as Handuman. And who called them Handumans? These people who believed that, they say they were not wearing clothes, they were naked. So these followers of Hanuman or Sugriva's companions, whatever you may say, they are referred as Hanuman by the pirates of the Malay archipelago. The Ptolemy, as rightly pointed out, who has done the big map in his geography, has in the 2nd century AD has also referred to this place as Andaman. Andaman, and again it is same as Andaman. But he mentions 2 other islands over there. One is the Nagdeep and the other is Barusia. Now Nagdeep is what we know as Nicobar. Next comes in line in 672 AD. It is the visit of Itzing, whom we call as Yejing. And he mentions this place, Nicobar, as Lo Jen Kuo. Lo Jen Kuo means the island of people who do not wear clothes. Island of people who do not wear clothes. This Lo Jen Kuo, next by the time when the Arab traveler comes in about 850 ADs, becomes Najabulus or Langabulus. So this carries on, and it finally, as it was referred here earlier, Madam said that it was the Cholas, the Chola kings. So in the Tanjore inscriptions of 1050 AD, we know this place is Navakaram. Sorry, it is Nakavaram. So the touch with this and not disturbing the people over there has always remained since ages. You see that there were ships that passed that way, they knew about those islands, and Cholas of course had stationed their sailors for a while on this island for their further expeditions to the Southeast Asia. But all these people were left to their own living style, own living, and they were not taken over because that was not the way Indian expeditions used to be. So Rajendra Chola II, who was living in the 11th century AD, had conquered the Karadeep, which is the Nicobar, and a Nagadeep, which is the Great Nicobar. Now, later on, also we in the 13th century, we learn about the Nakavaram in the records of Marco Polo, and then later the Arabic sailors Rashiduddin, and then Friar Odoric, and 15th century comes, and we come to know about Niccolo di Conti. The damage could come not only through a military means, but also through the advancement of one civilization, a culture of a level that we who are holding in cities and those who are in this region could be unknowingly be the stress points for those people who are in this place in the ANI. Because we consider ourselves to be a higher culture, we would definitely not be so much conscious where we are going to be sort of a baneful or maybe somewhere more destroying to them, as we would think that we are doing good to them, we would be doing something bad. If we hold this in our minds, we will be conscious that not even the smallest harm or injury could be made to them through our, of course, unconscious civilizing efforts. If we go by this emotional way, we think that our nationalistic ideas will be really appreciated and they will be successful as well. Otherwise, in a hurry to give them protection, we somewhere become enemies to them and we somewhere do the damage we do not want to make to them. Exploitation of their resources, of course in the national interest, it is the Indian boundary, Exploitation becomes the word I'm using, is where we have to be very cautious. Are we doing things in our policies which are going to, of course, benefit the nation, but are they going to benefit that community that is there? Do they feel that it's a benefit to them or not? That is the first thing that they must know. Just as a doctor operates a patient and tells him beforehand that this is going to be the result of it and need your consent. I think that this is the basic ethics of any of the policy, that when we are moving into such a territory which needs as protection from the nation, we need to very clearly get this message understood by those community through some level. I don't know how it is, what would be the conditions, but I think that it is a necessary step. Otherwise, the whole community would be at a loss and would not be able to understand why it was done to them. My dear young friends, I think that now onwards, today, after this seminar, and I'm really thankful to the organizers of this seminar, we would at least be mindful of the fact that Andaman and Nicobar is a very integral part of us. It is one of the part of our society, and just as we need to take care of the sentiments of each other, we would be aware of their requirements as well as pushing our ideas upon them. So, application of our policies, of course, you as young people would also appreciate. I am thankful to all of my good colleagues in Pondicherry University, as well as the respected dignitaries over here, for giving me this opportunity to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful lecture, which emphasized the historical perspective, bringing us back to the multiplicity of perspectives that we will be exploring here in the next 2 days. We thank you for bringing in a lot of historical perspective. And within that, you also made a very interesting point in which you have, if I can say, excavated Andaman and Nicobars from a very exotic gaze that we have on Andaman and Nicobar, as the West had on us during the colonial and also the post-colonial times. We tend to consider them as jungly, and there is this whole question of Kala Pani, sending people out. It's an outside of India, that we've had that kind of a perspective for a very long time. And you made a very important point that it is, we need to introspect on how we have looked at them as outsiders in terms of bringing them in. That's a very important point. And we really need to think about it, because if we have to enter into their domain, then we need to be very respectful, and we need an army of great anthropologists to do that for us. And I would push it still further to say that in these times of vulnerability, in terms of medical vulnerability, climactic vulnerability, we can even find interesting solutions to certain problems if we look into what their societal, how they have constituted societies, what kind of systems they have. This is our indigenous knowledge that we can get from them and then take it to the world. So we can look at the Andaman and Nicobars from that perspective also. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite Professor Chandrika, who is the Dean of Social Sciences, for felicitation address. She's teaching and researching in the Department of History, Pondicherry University, for the past 32 years. Presently, she is holding the position of Dean, School of Social Sciences and International Studies. Her areas of expertise are historiography, intellectual history of modern India, history of women, and history of medicine. We are really proud of her for having completed several projects that include the UGC Major Research Project on the profession and practice of medicine in colonial South India, and recently she completed a SPARK project entitled Engendering Developmental Goals, Strategies and Action Plans, a dialogue between India and Europe. We are pleased to have you here with us, ma'am, and we look forward to it.
Respected Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University and the chair of this session, Professor Tarini Karasu sir, and Ambassador Raju Bhatia, who has been the former ambassador to Myanmar, Ministry of External Affairs, who has been here delivering his inaugural address. Dr. Mrs. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, who has come here to give the keynote address. Guest of honor, our Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, Professor Abhay Kumar Singh, Professor Subramaniam Raju, the coordinator and head of the UGC Center for Maritime Studies of this Pondicherry University, Dr. Shripati Narayanan, research fellow representing this famous Indian Council of World Affairs, ICWA, New Delhi, distinguished participants from different parts of India who have gathered here, and we have deans, HODs, faculty colleagues of the Pondicherry University, research scholars, and student friends. A very good afternoon to one and all for being so patiently waiting here and listening to the speeches. I always feel such national seminars are very significant and very relevant because they help us to refresh our knowledge and also learn new things by way of updating ourselves of recent researches in the field. And therefore, in this way, the conduct of the national seminar by these organizations, Center for Maritime Studies, Indian Council of World Affairs, and ICSSR funded. This seminar is a very significant, it has taken up a significant topic that is about the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And first of all, let me congratulate our center head, Professor Raju. I would say Subramaniam Raju, yes, stands for serious, R stands for research. And in the School of Social Sciences, we all know that how serious his research is. More than a dozen publications he has brought out through Routledge and conducted a number of seminars, and always his research and his seminars are followed by publications. And we are also aware of the work of ICWA, situated in the capital of India. They are in a position to conduct very important seminars on key themes, and I have been updated because they are constantly sending me mails about their activities. So these two, Center for Maritime Studies and Indian Council of World Affairs, are now collaborating for this seminar. And as I told you, that some 8 publications came to my hand today. And these were lectures conducted in the Center for Maritime Studies under UGC funding, and they have been published. And this is a very important thing, that these kind of publications actually stand on the shelf, and they are the long-lasting contributions of any research. And that way, I think Professor Raju is doing a wonderful contribution. And now, several speakers before me have been highlighting the importance of maritime studies, and we also saw a map, upturned map of India, where we find the Indian Ocean occupies a more important place than the countries, or what we call the terra space. The water space becomes more important. And I would say, being from the subject of history, that the very word oceans connect, and also the importance of maritime histories in the place of terra histories is actually, I would say, it started with historical studies. But today, we find maritime studies is much more than historical studies. We have diaspora studies and studies of cultural heritage, studies of economic development, what our Raju calls blue economy. So all these make this subject a multidisciplinary one. And we find, I should also thank our Dr. Ritu Tyaki, who has been wonderfully comparing this session. She is also a person who is specializing in diaspora studies from the field of literature. And therefore, this is a multidisciplinary theme, that maritime studies, and it is really making very wonderful research. And as has been pointed out by our Professor Abhay Kumar Singh, the history, so we understand that is what we find one of the themes, look and act east. And all international studies, the experts, they identify this in the 20th century, perhaps with our Prime Minister Narasimha Rao or later about look at, all these about India's more interaction of India with the Southeast Asian countries. But when it comes to the beginning of this look east or act east policy, that goes back to the 11th century with the Chola king Rajendra I, who used these islands as a kind of a base for going further. And we also have a French historian by name Georges Sedis, who has written a beautiful book on Indianized states of Southeast Asia. And all these give us the importance of these island countries, which were used as a base for the look east or act east policy of the Cholas. And we actually already have a very good exposure to the historical background from our Professor Abhay Kumar Singh and our Ambassador Raju Bhatia. Let me not expand on that thing. But the epithet Kalapani actually was because of the intervention of the British, who made Andaman as a penal colony. And it was such a kind of a situation where it was impossible for the prisoners to get out of the prison. And this is something that has given rise to this thing, Kalapani. And that is a very important intervention, we say, that happened in the 19th century. So 11th century, we have one intervention. 19th century, we have another intervention. But more importantly, in the 20th century, at the time of World War II, we have another intervention by way of Japanese conquest of Andaman Islands. And what is more important than the Japanese conquest was the visit of Subhash Chandra Bose ji to the Andaman Islands. He came here in 1943, and he raised the flag of Azad Hind Fauj for the first time in Andaman Islands. And that is some historical intervention that I would like to remember at this point of time. And we all now understand that Great Nicobar has been recognized by the UNESCO as a biosphere which has to be preserved and protected. And the very name Nicobar, we all know, is derived from the Tamil word Nakavaram, which we find in the 11th century Chola inscription at the Tanjavur temple. So Nakavaram, as has been pointed out earlier, means the land of naked people. And it's also mentioned by Marco Polo as Nekura. So like that, we have the map of these islands given by the Chinese. So the international interest in these islands goes back for a long time. But presently also, we have some interest, and we find our Vice Chancellor of the Maritime University gave you a very good talk on the developmental project that is going on in Great Nicobar. Why this developmental project? What are the reasons for this? I would at least point out two such reasons. One is that the 2004 tsunami made such a havoc on the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And many of these islands are underdeveloped. They need development. Actually, our Professor Raju was talking about the southernmost tip, which was Indra Point, which is now submerged under the sea, all because of tsunami. And tsunamis in Andaman and Nicobar Islands are not only in 2004. We find mention of lot of tsunamis that happen in this Indian Ocean region affecting the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Indian ports during the medieval period. So the economic development of these islands are very important, not only for their sake, but India, which occupies a primary position strategically in the Indian Ocean, now has a competitor in the name of China. And we find Maldives are already taking the interest of China, who has been, the Chinese has been actually loaning for infrastructure development in Maldives and Sri Lanka, and also Nepal in the north. But since India has to compete with China for a prominent position in the Indian Ocean, upon which we have the eyes of the United States of America, Pakistan, and whatnot. And we know, and because of Chaudhary Rahmat Ali, there was an effort to get Nicobar to be attached to Pakistan, which has been already mentioned, but it did not happen. So the international eye is on this region, and because of the tsunami impact, the islands need some infrastructure. So these are some of the security, strategic and economic reasons that the government of India has brought this mega project of developing an international port and other infrastructure developments in Great Nicobar. Started in 2020. They vetted it with international consultancies about the environmental impact, but we find, sponsored by the Frontline magazine, one professor of IIT from Bombay by name Professor Pankaj Saksharia, he has brought out a big volume with essays, and this book is entitled The Great Nicobar Betrayal. So we find any developmental project for that matter invites debate. Some people want it for economic development, when some people point out the impact, environmental impact, how even the very studies of making an international port, the already existing port, which is part of the bioreserve, is being affected by the pilot studies that has been done there. So we have to take into account both sides. One is that we have to preserve the bioreserve, and on the other side, we have to think of developing these islands, which are very much backward economically, and we have to take measures in a cautious manner. I would say that if it is possible, we have this concept of participatory democracy, but unfortunately, the tribals are not in a position to decide for themselves, and therefore they are being represented by others. And this is the situation that is happening presently, the contemporaneous things. And here also, I would say that ethnographic studies about the tribes of Andamans, the Shampen, the Onge, the Jarawa, and the Sentinelese, Great Andamanis, Nicobaris, all these were done by the colonial people first. We have Edward Horace Mann, Portland, and others who did ethnographic studies of these tribal people. But recently, from Pondicherry University, there was a professor of anthropology by name Professor Subramaniam Naidu. He has brought out his own research based on ethnographic field work in the Andaman, and it is one of the long-lasting contributions of the Pondicherry University, and also the contribution now being made by the Coastal Disaster Management Department of Andamans, about which our Vice Chancellor has been pointing out. And island studies and their importance for strategy, security, and economy are now gaining momentum with the question of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So with these few words, I now think you understand the importance of this seminar, and we have very distinguished people who have come here to present papers on different themes, and I have no doubt that a publication will follow from the proceedings of the seminar. We all stand to benefit, and once again, I congratulate Professor Subramaniam Raju and the ICWA, represented by Dr. Shripati Narayanan, for making this effort to conduct this two-day national seminar. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have always been impressed by the vastness of your understanding of subjects, and also ma'am is somebody who has keen interest in France and always points out one or two French theoreticians, as she did today. She also made a very important point and the necessity for us to think of the concept of development, and how questions of sustainability and eco-criticism need to be included within the idea of rampant development, which is also central and key to our understanding of Andaman and Nicobars that we will be discussing here for the 2 days. Thank you so much. I now invite Dr. Shripati Narayanan for his closing remarks. He is a research fellow with the Indian Council for World Affairs, which is also co-organizing this conference. He has a doctorate from the University of Madras with a thesis entitled Strategic Concerns for India in the Indian Ocean, a case study of the Maldives. His research interests include the political and security situation in South Asia and Indo-Pacific region. He has an understanding of the nuances of maritime security, defense modernization, and defenses in India. Prior to joining ICWA, he had been a consultant with the Policy Planning and Research Division of the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. He has also worked with prominent think tanks like the Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies, Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi, and Center for Land Warfare Studies in Delhi. He is somebody who has traveled all across the world in India and who also had been working at the Jindal University earlier. We welcome you here and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those kind words of introduction. Ambassador Bhatia, all the three vice chancellors, professors, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I'll make my intervention very short because I'll have another talking assignment tomorrow in one of the sessions. So the couple of points which I want to make, and was what Dr. Raju said, it should not be Kashmir to Kanyakumari, but Kashmir to India point. But there's an old joke that runs in my family. Because my family traces its origins to Kanyakumari, and Kanyari ki tekkerla mongam paatami to sotte. In English, it is everything south of Kanyakumari is our ancestral property. In Hindi, it is the Kanyakumari ka dakshin, sab apna kar ka hai. The reason why I'm saying the same sentence in three languages is that the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is a melting pot of Indian society. It was not only the Kala Party cellular jail that brought people from all corners of the British Indian Empire, from the Pathans of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to Bengals to the Madras Presidency. But also, apart from that, you have the entire Bengal coast, the Bay of Bengal coast, from Bengal to Tamil Nadu, people settling in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, wherein Tamil, Telugu, Oriya and Bengali happens to be everyone's first tongue. It may not be the mother tongue, the first tongue. And this melting pot creates a completely different dynamics, a different environment. And the environment which I'm talking not only human, but also ecological. Going back to my thesis, which is on Maldives, which is a coral island, and the Andaman, which is a volcanic island. Both these island territories of India are classic case studies to understand the impact of global warming, which unfortunately very few people understand the impact of global warming. And with that, you throw in the Himalayas and the Thar Desert. India becomes the best lab to study the real impact of global warming and climate change. That is one point which I want to make. Second point which I want to make is, which I'll elaborate more in detail. There was a reference by Ambassador Bhatia to all the European interest. There was another interest to another party interested in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and that was the Indonesians under Suharto during the 1965 Indo-Pakistan War. There were concerns that the Indonesians may walk in. It was also at that point of time, the Indonesians were fighting over Malaysia, over the Borneo Islands in the Southeast Asian. And it ended with the formation of the ASEAN. What we may see is that when we look at the Andaman and Nicobar as a launch pad of ASEAN, you should also see that the Andaman and Nicobar also played a role in creating ASEAN. The Indonesian expansionist ambition and the internal dynamics of ASEAN or Southeast Asia was changed when Indonesia stopped expanding or having a desire to expand its territory. The third point which I would also like to make, and actually taking off from what Ambassador Bhatia said, it is very important that Pondicherry holding this seminar, given the fact that they've got a satellite campus. And Ambassador Bhatia had mentioned that there is a unique perspective that Pondicherry University can bring. Is that for being a coastal state, which the continental part of or the interland may not understand. And it is for that very precise reason the Indian Council of World Affairs takes pleasure in partnering. Our intention of such outreach effort and partnering is not only to take the discourse on international relations and security outside the conventional sphere of the national capital, but to every nook and corner wherein we also can learn different perspective. As Professor Raju had shown the map, you just invert the map and the entire perspective changes. We may also sometimes have to change the location of the discourse and the perspective changes. And with these few, and in this context, this is one endeavor which has been ingrained in the DNA of ICW, WA, as the oldest think tank which started as Sapro House which started in 1943. Our founding charters had chapters across the country, but over time we consolidated for different reasons. And ICWA as an institution has also played an incubator for a number of other institutions in the country, whether it be the Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, IDSC, which is more popularly known, or the hub of IR in India, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sripati Narayanan, for your closing remarks. Sorry. Thank you so much for your closing remarks, for summarizing a little bit what everybody had said for us, and more particularly for the collaboration that ICWA has offered to the Center for Maritime Studies in order to organize this conference. Before ending and proceeding for the lunch, Professor Raju has given me the Herculeous task of thanking everyone. I would begin by thanking the university administration, our beloved Honorable Vice Chancellor. And we cannot end the vote of thanks without our sense of gratitude towards the pillars of strength of all departments, who are the faculty members, the research scholars, and more importantly, the students who have been sitting here and patiently listening to all these lectures. And I believe you would have, got enough information to generate enough interest to be able to sit with us through the 2 days of the national seminar. Thank you so much for your support. I also thank the technical team, who is another pillar of support for us, always willing to help in technical problems. And with that, I end sending my very best wishes to the organizers, to all the speakers who will be presenting, to the students who will be participating in this event, for the success of this national seminar today and tomorrow. Thanks a lot for your patience.